Angel, nullity on earth, existential void, moral inertia, and the late awakening of the meaning of life. The testimony of the spirit Angel, presented in the second part of Heaven and Hell, addresses a little discussed but profoundly relevant theme: the spiritual suffering generated not by great faults, but by moral nullity, the absence of purpose, and the refusal to live consciously and responsibly. It is a narrative that reveals the consequences of inner inertia. Angel manifests with sufficient lucidity to recognize her condition after death, but is immersed in deep dejection. In life, her existence was marked by passivity, lack of moral initiative, and indifference to opportunities for growth. She did not commit great evils, but she also did not strive to do good. She lived as a spectator of her own life, avoiding effort, commitment, and responsibility. Modern depth psychology helps to understand this state. Lives led without purpose, goals, or personal meaning tend to generate existential emptiness. When the individual avoids choices and responsibilities, they build a fragile identity, dependent on circumstances. After passing, when the automatic routines of material life cease, this emptiness reveals itself intensely. Spiritism clarifies that Angel's suffering is not punishment for negative acts, but a consequence of the absence of moral and intellectual development. The consciousness awakens to the fact that the time of bodily life was wasted in sterile neutrality. Pain arises from the recognition that one could have learned, helped, evolved, and did not. Modern science reinforces this reading by showing that human beings need meaning to maintain psychological balance. Studies on existential meaning indicate that a lack of purpose generates deep suffering, even in the absence of obvious traumas. On the spiritual plane, where consciousness expands, the perception of this lack becomes even clearer. Another striking point in Angel's testimony is the absence of inner references. Without cultivated values, without deep connections, and without commitment to something greater than oneself, consciousness becomes disoriented. This state highlights that spiritual life is not sustained merely by the absence of guilt, but by the active presence of good. Spiritism teaches that this state is not definitive, as Angel understands that life has an educational purpose and that each existence is an opportunity for growth. A process of awakening begins. Suffering acts as a warning, showing that not living fully also has consequences. This account brings a message that is especially relevant today. In a society that often values comfort, neutrality, and minimal effort, Angel's testimony reminds us that spiritual evolution requires active participation. It is not enough to avoid evil. It is necessary to consciously choose good, learning, and inner development. Angel teaches us that life does not ask for perfection, but for engagement. Moral nullity does not protect the conscience, it impoverishes it. Each delayed choice, each avoided responsibility, each ignored opportunity leaves marks that only become visible when time can no longer be recovered. Reflecting on this account is an invitation to conscious action in the present. Developing purpose, taking responsibility, and living with intention now is the best way to avoid emptiness later. Awareness grows when one decides to live, not just exist. If this testimony helped you reflect on purpose, responsibility, and the meaning of life, like, share, and leave your comment. Your participation helps this message reach more people.